Welcome to the Saints, the City and Me, a podcast that delves into the fandom of the New Orleans Saints and its connections to the rich culture, history, and unique charm of the city. I'm Michael, also known as MKC Papa on social media, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host Dan, also known as Procrastinatus. Throughout the podcast, we'll be speaking to passionate fans from around the world, listening to their stories of how they became fans of the team and the city, and discovering what exactly it was that drew them in. Join us on this exciting journey as we explore the intersection of football fandom, culture, and the enchanting spirit of the city. So welcome to the Saints and the City and Me, and welcome to our friend, Mark Daley. How are you, Mark?
Really good. I'm a bit hoarse. I just went to a different type of football match a couple of days ago.
Soccer.
That's the one, where my team, West Ham, just won a European competition. So a little hoarse today, and still a little hungover actually, but
yeah,
happy days.
It was one of those ones, funnily enough, over here where I think normally when English teams get into a European final, I think 70% of the country don't want them to win. But I think with West Ham, I don't know one person, unless obviously actually we've got a Tottenham fan on as we speak, but a majority of fans universally wanted West Ham to win that one.
Yeah, I mean, all my family are West Ham fans, so I wanted to see them enjoy their team winning a trophy. So that means more to me than that rivalry, seeing them get to enjoy that. So
I think you can almost relate us West Ham a little bit to the Saints. Really, it's like, I'm not going to say small market because we are in London, but it's a smaller side of the big city. Always been kind of a family club, and people just go. Much more of a social. It's quite a social event when you go and see West Ham play. You go with friends, family, just like the Saints, And if we can talk about it later, but if you're going to see the Saints and you ain't got a tailgate to go to, it's probably your first time in New Orleans, because by the second time you're going to have somewhere to go, right? It's just that social.
You're absolutely right. It's one that I think me and you, Dan, probably speaking from the same experience. First time I went, you're just there as a complete and utter tourist going to a game. You don't really know what you're meant to be doing. All the times I've been since, I've always had offers of tailgates, and I've attended one, I think, every time.
Yeah.
We wandered into a tailgate, and the guy just said to me, "Oh, if you haven't got any cash, I'll take that pin." I had like a game pin. He went, "I'll take that if you want instead of cash." And I was like,
"Yeah,
nice that'll guy, work. But I need to keep the pin, so I have got cash."
Yeah. So what do you want to quickly travel over some Saints news, Dan? Mark, you know this. We're not a deep dive. We're more about the stories that hopefully you're going to tell us today. But I suppose we ought to cover a couple of bits. Dan, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded. You and I both had a bit of R&R. There's a few things that have come up. So obviously, a couple of the bigger ticket items. Well, I say bigger tickets. Some have caused some ripples. So obviously, John Gruden coming into the facility to do some work with the coaching staff and looking at how they can get the best out of Derek Carr has obviously caused some ripples in the not just amongst the fans, but also some of the Saints media guys have had different opinions on it. I mean, from my point of view, Dennis Allen drafted Derek Carr. If he's got to pull someone in to understand him a little bit better, I find it's strange. It's a strange thing to do. I don't really care for the things that John Gruden got kicked out of the league for. So leave that where it is. But it's that's caused some interesting stuff. I think OTAs have been really interesting. So I've been following a lot of John Hendricks and Ross Jackson. Obviously, John Hendricks is the king of OTAs. He's literally pumping out so much content. There's really interesting stuff coming out in terms of attendance has been up compared to last year. I think it's been a bit up and down, but towards the end of the week, it was high. Mike Thomas coming back is absolutely massive, being there for the end of OTAs. If we can get some degree of Mike Thomas back that is north of 70% of the player he was, then that's as good as any wide receiver in the league.
I mean, I think just on that, I think Mark, you're probably the same. It's when you it's just that dream of having Can't Guard back, isn't it? It's just he was so dominant at his peak. And that peak, even though he broke the record, that peak was a good 3 years of peak. And that was for a young player. And just to have missed that for 3 years. I mean, that weapon, that any team in the NFL would miss that, and the fact that you had that wage that you were paying him meant that you couldn't actually go out and perhaps get some cover and whatnot. But that's great news, I think, for the team.
Yeah, I think we've been really lucky to have some great underappreciated, mostly wide receivers, but he was just on track to be the greatest of all time for us. And it's his hands and his body positioning.
Yeah.
And Drew throwing to him, he's putting it on target all the time, but it's just amazing to watch. And you always felt confident that, we'd get a drive going, with Mike Thomas there.
I think there's an argument to say that Mike Thomas maybe extended Drew's career a little bit, just because some of those contested catches that you would come down with, maybe a lesser wide receiver being your number one, Drew tails off a little bit earlier. Not to say that the accuracy was always there, but one of the things that obviously Mike Thomas gets a lot of stick from rival fans. They call him slant boy and stuff like that. But I didn't realize this until this week, that Jerry Rice got the majority of his catches running slant routes, and he's the best ever, arguably. And it's just, it just goes to show you that rival fans, it's just jealousy in terms of how good a player is, and they don't want to give them credit.
Yeah.
Especially with the Bucks and Mike Evans, there's always that comparison between the two.
And
there was no comparison.
No. You look back at last season as well, and Andy Dalton, and he had some bad games, and we know that he was terrible in some games. He also had some games where actually his accuracy wasn't too bad, and it just seemed like every time he had a good game where he was accurate, our receivers were terrible. Drop catches and open easy catches too, and it just feel like it seemed like Andy Dalton wanted to chuck in the middle a lot too, but with Mike Thomas is there, I'm pretty sure his completion rate would have been quite a bit higher.
Yeah. Couple of things just want to pull out from OTAs, Mike. A lot of buzz around Jordan Howden. A lot of buzz around him, and I'm going to make a bold.
You listen.
I'm going to make a bold.
To Ross Jackson.
I listen to Ross Jackson constantly.
Yeah, that's Ross Jackson. Ross
Jackson's got me believing that he is going to end the season as our number one nickel. Starter. And I was looking at some of his stats today. Not that we're a logistics podcast, but I thought his stats are actually remarkably similar to Chancey's in terms of I think he's a bit taller than Chancey. Chancey was heavier going into the combine. And other than the bench press, I think their numbers are fairly similar. So potentially it's almost like a like for like in terms of what they've shown at combine. Production wise, it's going to be a different thing. And obviously the other thing, they're saying Olave, Rashid and Juwan Johnson looking great in OTAs. So throw Mike Thomas into there, those four receiving. Derek Carr's going to have a field day.
Yeah, we can only hope. But, I mean, the other couple of things, I didn't even realise until earlier this week that Debo hadn't been around for 2 weeks.
I've got that as a
me because he's in a real competition now. Unless he's injured, and that hasn't come out.
He was injured last season. A lot.
Yeah, but he was there, I think, for the first week of OTAs, and then suddenly he's not there for the other 2 weeks, which. He's in a real competition, and that really surprised me. But we'll have to. Yet again, it's OTAs. I mean, we know that people haven't turned up. AK wasn't there, and I don't think he's been there for 3 or 4 years. I think, but I think a bit of that was COVID as well. So
I think they said experienced running backs don't really want to put more tread on the tires. So I understand that, but he's definitely got a competition at Debo with Taylor. And I'm surprised that he's not there to show up, because apparently Taylor's playing well in OTAs as well.
Yeah. But also, just the last point I think from me on that is that you're talking about journos being high. I think both John and Ross are really high on Kirk Merritt. I think both of them are tipping him actually to be in the 53, and that's he's converting, isn't he? From
the wide to a running back. I didn't know. I only found out today that Kirk Merritt went to East Mississippi, which was the community college on Last Chance U. So he went there. Okay. He got kicked out of a college in Texas, and he went there for a year. After it was the year after they finished filming. So I didn't know. I found it quite interesting today.
Okay.
And whilst talking around reality TV. No decision on Hard Knocks yet.
All right.
Only 4
I thought you were
teams
going to bring
left.
up Love Island. I was going to start crying.
No, four teams can be forced into it. Us, the Jets, the Bears, the Commanders. I think if you look at it from a narrative point of view, who wants to watch the Commanders unless you're interested in a corporate takeover of a football team? The Bears, I don't see any narrative there. I think we're in danger. We've got real danger. I know Ross said today he thinks that the Aaron Rodgers story will be too much for them not to want to do that. But we got a lot of stories in this team, a lot of big characters. I wouldn't be surprised if they forced us into it. I'm sure they'd love to come to New Orleans and do a Hard Knocks there. You know,
without a doubt. And but the thing about it is, you're right. It's the huge market of New York, and it's the huge market of Aaron Rodgers. And I think those two things coupled together, we haven't. I mean, we're from a perverse point of view, not actually from a perverse point of view, but I'd love us to be on Hard Knocks, because the one thing that really, really buggers me off about the Saints is their PR department is awful.
Don't let Repo hear you saying that.
No, but they are, because you look at, I see it all the time. You know, everyone's algorithm on YouTube or whatever, because you're watching a lot of NFL stuff. It doesn't only show you stuff about the Saints; it shows you stuff about the NFL. And I'm always getting these little mini versions of Hard Knocks coming up, you know, with other teams who create their own content. And, you know, even from a New Orleans point of view, the Pelicans do that. And that little series about the Pelicans, I found really, really interesting.
Well, it's the same media team, isn't it, Mark? The same guys that run Pelicans and the Saints media, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but I think they actually have execution teams that are different. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not getting...
They are the same. That explains it. They're just leaning
focused on
the other. And,
Well, the PR department in the Pelicans is going to have a really hard job in the next few weeks.
Yeah. Have you seen all this Zion stuff, Mark?
Yeah.
That says it all, Mark.
Just turn his phone off and just put it down for a week. They just want to say last thing. They haven't forced the team to be on Hard Knocks since 2019. That was the Raiders. That was the last time they forced the team to be on it, and I think they're going to have to this time. So yeah.
Right. So that's moving on from that. Right now, so into the crux of what this is about. So, Mark, our first question for you is: was it the Saints or the City?
It was the Saints, most definitely. But the first visit to the city to see a Saints game just blew my mind. Being a history buff as well, just walking around what is basically a living museum in the quarter, and walking around, hearing the music. Like you guys really into music. It was just, oh my God. And I mean, I'm an old punk dude, and punk and alternative. And, I went to see basically for free a Zydeco band on Bourbon Street, walked in there and holy crap, this is amazing. I mean, how can you not move to this music? And go and tell my mates I'm into Zydeco now, dude. I'm not going to see the Exploited or anything like that. So, but definitely the Saints. I was an NFL fan first, and then
was that when you were in Australia?
Yeah. So for everyone, I'm originally from Melbourne. You can probably tell I've got mixed up accent, but lived here in the UK for a long time. But yeah, NFL fan first, and I'll go into the story quickly if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just quickly.
Yeah, so it takes as long as you need.
High school. Hey,
let's take as long as you need.
Yeah, cool. So my first year at high school, so I guess I don't know, like 12 or something like that.
You look good for a 12-year-old.
Oh yeah, I still haven't graduated, but and so our PE teachers for my first 2 years were American exchange PE teachers, believe it or not. They'd never been to Australia before. They come in, do this exchange program, so they don't know anything about cricket, Aussie rules, rugby league, rugby. I don't know. So what are we going to do? We're going to play American sports, which, at the time, basketball is very popular and still is in Australia. NFL was unknown, but we knew it, and they used to show the Super Bowl every year, and that was it, nothing else.
Yeah.
And so they decided that they were going to teach all these Aussie kids how to play American football. So we had to play flag football because obviously we didn't have the equipment, but they got balls sent down from the American Embassy in Canberra.
Wow.
Also sent game film. So they, the big old reels. So they sent game film down, and basically we studied how to learn the game in a film room, and then would go out and play. And we did that for 2 years. And one of the guys, I still remember their names as well, Mike Novak and Mike Love. And Mr. Love, his wife came over. She was working in the library, and they got Sports Illustrated sent over. So every month we'd get like a 4-month-old Sports Illustrated would finally come off the boat. And it was incredible, mad rush to get that Sports Illustrated. And by the time you got it, it was wrecked, and people had cut pictures out, bastards.
Mark, to be honest, it sounds like a halcyon dream. You get taught with film how to play the NFL, and also there was a sexy American librarian as well in the picture.
She wasn't.
Oh my god!
Either. Yeah, they're all Californians, right? And all from LA. So actually, this is a bit of the story. The truth be told is, so most of us we're all LA Rams fans because that's all we knew really, and so I kind of grew up. So probably the first time I went to the US was when I was 23. So NFL fan, but you couldn't really follow it. They used to have this, I think they had one in England too, where you could ring up on the Monday, this telephone number in Sydney, and get the results read out.
Mark, you're showing your age, son.
Oh yeah. No,
before CFAX.
Yeah.
Telesex.
I'm really old. And,
my mate, me and you both.
Yeah. So I mean, it was kind of exciting to ring that number, but you didn't really know what was going on. They just read the scores basically. But so what happened is my wife, my girlfriend at the time, we decided we're going to come to England for a holiday, and I said, right, we're going via LA, and we're going to go to a NFL game, a Rams game. So it was 1989, so I am showing my age, and so we come in. It was sort of end November, I think. And went up, bought tickets, which was, I didn't realize I didn't have to stress too much. I was stressing about getting tickets. There's about 25,000 people at Anaheim Stadium, absolute dog pit. And that's been unfair to dogs at the time. and basically we went in there, and I mean, I was so excited, just awesome. And it was a great experience. Went in there, and it's like looking around, it's like a quarter of the crowd is like Saints fans. We were playing the Saints, the Rams. I was going, I don't know much about the Saints or whatever, and it was cool. And there was some ladies sitting near us, and they had all the gear on, and this is like really cool. And the Saints won, and I go, oh man, I think I really like these Saints. Anyway, we went to England, went back to Australia. Couldn't see much about football on the TV or anything. And then, but 2 years later, we went back to, because all Australians, they either land in, or used to at least land in LA or San Francisco. So went back to LA, and then I'm kind of looking at it, and there's like 5, so we were there for like 6 weeks. So there's like 5 Rams games and 49ers game, but one of the games was against the Saints in New Orleans. So I said to Lise, we're going to get on a plane and go to New Orleans. Now, this is before the internet, right? So it's like, how do you get hotels? And anyway, I can't even remember how we booked it up, but we booked it up, and that was it. I just went to the Dome.
So the first time you went to the city was with Lisa. So
yeah. So got into the city. We stayed out. I still to this day don't know where we actually stayed, but it was a cab ride. And this is on the more negative side, is like we're staying in this hotel, And the first night we get woke up about 3 a.m. There's a police raid next door, banging on. We thought they raided that. It's like, I don't think we picked the best hotel. But anyway, we were fine. But we had just a brilliant time. And
yeah.
And then
did that cement then you're following the going to the city, going to the dome, and obviously back when you like from myself and Dan's perspective, I suppose, obviously even though we all know the dome's old, but it's still, I think it's still a wonderful, wonderful venue. Obviously,
it's iconic. There's nothing like it. I don't think there's anything. They can build these new domes, but there's nothing like the Superdome.
No. There's a heart about the dome. There's something about it.
I was talking to Dylan about it the other day, and I said to him, "Look how good it is. It's called. It's got super in the title. It's got to be good. Like just fantastic in there."
Yeah, I've been very lucky, like you guys, to have been to quite a lot of away games. And there's nothing like it. I mean, I really like the Cardinals Stadium. I think that's really nice, right?
Yeah,
it's nice. It doesn't grab you and go, oh my God. I mean, it's like you're in the belly of the beast.
Yeah, you're right in there the whole time. It doesn't matter if you're in the 600s or down on the sideline. You feel like you're just tight in together with everyone.
But that weird light. There's a weird lighting in the dome as well. It's not quite bright daylight. It's not quite dark enough. It's just a weird light. I love it.
It's like a permanent dusk sort of light. Yeah. And when I came out, it was like daylight when I came out, and it throws you. It's like going to cinema in some respects. Like you come out and go, it's still light outside.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get what you mean. And then you get the glow from the jumbotrons as well, the different vibrant colours that come out of that.
So we went back 2 years later. Again. Now at this point, I still like the Rams kind of thing too, right? Yeah. But I sort of also hate them. And then but following the Saints, but it's just so hard to follow anyone, to be honest. So it weren't like you could watch telly. No. But what happened around this time, which is maybe 93 or something, there was an American guy in Australia called Don Lane, who was like an entertainment guy, and he did like a late show. And he convinced the Aussie BBC, the ABC, to give him a 1-hour program each Tuesday night showing the games from the weekend before that weekend. So
wow.
Not the past weekend, but the weekend before that.
So we moaned about the BBC coverage over here.
But it was life-changing for me.
But obviously it was, because as you're saying, back then it's, me and you, Mark, similar ages, and getting content and getting information back then was so difficult. It was really difficult. And, literally you'd wait for a magazine to come through, and then, that would be sort of 3 weeks out of date with the info they're giving you there. And it was just so difficult to find out when you weren't living in the country.
Yeah, I was about to make a comment and say, it just shows you where we are. We're sitting here now, 3 of us in London or around London, talking about this. 25 years ago, you struggled to find out. You might be able to get a score, but you couldn't find out who scored the touchdowns or any of the stats, because the information just wasn't there unless you was in the US.
Yeah. But I can't. I think it might have been 1989 when I first came to the UK first time, or the second time, I can't remember. I discovered this magazine called First Down. Oh my God. I was going, what? They've got this magazine in the UK. Just mind-blowing. So I subscribed. It took forever, and it cost a bomb to get to Australia and that. But it was amazing. And by the time I got it, and people forget as well, postage and mail for magazines and that back in the day was a disgrace. 3 months to get right. It was absolute terrible, but it was just amazing. But it definitely hooked the city.
Can I ask you a question about that Rams game in LA? Mark, who are the linebackers on that game? Do you remember?
Oh, Jesus. I'm going to say it's the Dome Patrol.
I was going to say, was it the Dome Patrol? Because it's right in that era.
think Bobby Hebert was the QB, and and the Saints won. And then
yeah, that's the biggest surprise.
the next time we went, the Saints won as well.
We could say you're a lucky omen, but I'm sure. Well, actually, we later on we'll probably move on to a subject matter where you are a bloody lucky omen. You really are.
Yeah.
But so it literally then for you and Lisa, you would go. How often would you try and get over to the city after the first sort of 2 initial visits? Was it then?
So after the first 2, we had a bit of a break, because what happened is we actually moved to the UK in '96, and so I had to work here, and my work was very European orientated at the time, setting up.
Yeah.
I work in telecoms, and
so
it was very European. So we traveled to Europe for a few years, and then I think probably started going back in the early, probably 2003, something like that. Before Katrina and stuff.
But you also, even now, yourself and Lisa, you go to the States quite a lot, but you also do that great thing, which I love, is that obviously you love to go to the city and you watch games, but you travel the country to watch games, don't you? You love to visit other stadia and
we're very lucky. I'm lucky with work, because now my work is quite a lot of US stuff. So I was in San Diego a few weeks ago for a big internet forum. Unfortunately, no games on or anything. So what we go every year now. We're lucky enough to do that. And what we will try and do is get an away game in. Now, I have some favorite away games to go to now, but we've been really lucky to go various places.
So you touched on that about favorite. What are the favorite away?
Well, we love Phoenix, because once you go watch the Saints, then you just travel. You can go to like Tucson, you can go to Sedona, go to the Grand Canyon. There's so much to do there. It's fabulous.
I was gonna say, a little tip for you. One of the greatest pizza makers is in Arizona. A guy,
really?
His name escapes me, but he's on there's a pizza show on Netflix, and some of the stuff he does with pizza is just unbelievable. And they say he's the best pizza in the world. But I'll look that up next time you go. Maybe check it out.
I think it's favorite. Any kind of more tourist orientated place like Nashville is like, go and see the Saints play the Titans in Nashville if you can. You're going to have an awesome time. The fans are great. Just fabulous. Obviously, going to Tampa, we used to have a good record. We got the Tampa Stadium. Apart from the big pirate ship, the corner's kind of interesting and funny, I suppose. But that's one of them old bland stadiums, out in the middle of nowhere. So it's not my favorite stadium, but obviously Florida's fabulous. I don't mind some of the cold weather games, but Lisa won't do them anymore after the four of us.
For the Jets.
For the folks watching here, we did the Jets game a couple of 2-3 years ago now, and poor old Lisa's nose was red.
I mean, it was funny. I mean, it wasn't that brutal sort of New York weather. It wasn't, but it was cold.
It was persistently cold.
I think I sort of had my Saints gear, even though Dan's favorite hoodie is what I was wearing, but I didn't really have much else sort of underneath that. And even though that's quite warm and snug, when you're out in the bitter conditions, and it was pretty bitter, especially in that car park, because the Jets weren't doing very well. The tailgate really wasn't happening, was it?
No.
And actually, the stadium was, I'd say, half empty. That might be being generous.
There was probably more Saints fans than we were.
I think we were on a 5 losing streak. We won that game, and it felt glorious.
AK and Taysom went off. It was
as the Jet fans were leaving, it was wonderful as we were dancing and waving them farewell.
Yeah, there was so many Saints fans just dancing on their seats, and everyone was like swinging stuff around their head, and it was a really good atmosphere, I think. Do you remember when we came out and we was walking through the car park, and I was high-fiving every Saints fan I saw, and I went up to the guy this Saints fan. I high-fived him, and the guy next to him I thought was an LSU fan. I was like, yeah, high-fived it. And he wasn't. It was a Minnesota Vikings fan. He just had the purple and yellow on. Right dickhead after that. But
I think you'd have had a couple of sweet.
That's why I wasn't that cold. I think I'd insulated with alcohol, as I do.
Yeah. I mean, I know you and Lisa after that game went off to get something to eat, and me and Dan went into the city and thought, yeah, well, because I can't remember. We wanted to watch the late game. Can you remember what it was, Dan?
It was Buffalo. It was Buffalo, and I know that because I was giving stick to some Bills fans. We went to a Steelers bar in Hell's Kitchen to watch it, and I was giving stick to some Bills fans about Cole Beasley because he wouldn't do the vaccine, and I was digging him out for it. So that's how I know it was a Bills game.
So I can't remember who they were playing, but it was an absolutely fantastic game. But I mentioned that because I've got one of my favorite ever pictures of Dan from that night, where Dad had a little bit too much to drink, and then he decided he was going to eat in the pub, and it didn't go very well, Mark. So
tacos, Mark. I was eating tacos. The worst thing to try and eat.
The floor was eating tacos. I'm not sure what Dan was eating, but the floor was eating tacos. But anyway, I think we ought to move on to I think most, if any Saints fans ever listen to this is going to be a wonderful little yarn for them to hear, because obviously it includes probably the greatest moment in the history of the franchise. So, Mark, Dan, do you want to head into this, please?
Yeah, I was going to say, so going into 2009, you and Lisa decided to take a punt and buy some tickets for a game. Just wondered, what game was that?
Yeah.
Mark?
So there's a company called Sports Travel Tours, and I don't know how they got my email or whatever, but basically, it's a guy called Andrew Hill. Andrew's English. He played. He was on the squad for the Monarchs as a kicker. And anyway, cut a long story short, Andrew, just with his mates, started going to the States to watch games, and then thought, hey, maybe I could turn this into a business, created a travel company. Now, I have no idea. I can't remember how he got my email, but sort of 1 October, an email popped in saying about Super Bowl trips from the UK, and thought, oh, okay, Saints are traveling pretty good. But I went to bed one night in November, and I had a dream. I really had a dream that the Saints went to the Super Bowl and won. And I woke up the next day and I said to Lise, I just had a dream that the Saints won the Super Bowl. And she's going, oh, okay. I said, and I know I've got an email for a Super Bowl trip. Do you want to go to Miami? She's going, well, all right, have a look. So that night I got it out, had a look at the package. It was about £3,300 each, which is amazing now.
Yeah.
Packages are like 12,000.
Yeah.
And this was flights, accommodation, game ticket, tailgate party. What's the guy with the bent finger?
Brian Baldinger.
Brian Baldinger. Morning with him. But Lisa's going, well,
you didn't have to play rock, paper, scissors with him, did you?
No. But she's going like, what if the Saints don't make it? And I was going, well, look, what the hell? We just go, it's a holiday, right?
It's Miami as well.
And it was
South Beach.
Yeah.
So once a lifetime thing. Okay, we'll do it. We'll have a look. And I realized that it was only 3,300. I think it went up 200 or 300 quid if I bought it by the end of the next day. So we just bought it. We did it. And then look, I know there's a million Saints fans out there that were like emotionally more attached to that kick.
You were financially attached to that kick.
But it was a whole game changer for me and for Lisa, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
It was, we got over there. It was a fabulous trip, obviously. Well, the thing is, it was an organized tour group, right? Yeah. So me and Lisa on this tour group were the only Saints fans. There's about I don't know, 15 just Brits and one German guy, Vikings fan, and the two of us. And so I've bought all my CD because the Saints, you can buy CDs of just Saints music. I bought all my CDs every time we got in the coach. I pumped them on, and all they're hearing who that songs and that. By the end, half of them were all rooting for the Saints. The half were going, fuck them. So yeah,
you need to work for the marketing team at the Saints for them at the moment, mate. Based on that.
Yeah, look, I know I could definitely help there. I work in product and marketing, if people don't know. They're not real good sometimes.
No. So during obviously from the point that you bought them, you were saying was it November you bought them?
Yeah.
So obviously you woke up.
The game.
Yeah, you had that dream. So obviously, apart from the championship game, where obviously you sort of touched on that, were you just getting more and more excited as the season sort of went on because you were thinking, I think this dream is just going to come true?
Yeah, and then we lost like the last 3 games, and it was like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe not, but we still, what did we go, 13-3 or something? I can't remember now, but and we still finished on top. So I was still pretty confident because we were just so good that season, and I was still pretty confident. But I got to admit, for the Vikings game, I didn't think we'd do it. Sort of, I guess, about into the first bit of the last quarter and stuff, and I started losing faith a little bit, but obviously people know the plays. There's some good plays in there, and pounding Favre, and
in retrospect, seeing the absolute whooping we put on Brett Favre and seeing what a shitty person he's become in terms of what he's done to local communities in Mississippi, I think we're owed a thank you for that. For especially him. I remember that game. I was going to say, I remember I probably had to be more suppressed on that game than the Super Bowl because at the time my daughter was only a couple of months old, and I'd sit downstairs and watch it. And when the kick went in, it's like holding everything in because you can't let it all out. Whereas the Super Bowl was a bit more, I don't want to say it's more comfortable, but then when Tracy Porter got the interception, it was like, you could just enjoy it. Whereas that one, it was just tense right up until that kick went through.
What was it like in the stadium, Mark?
Oh, incredible! Like, I've been I've gone to a couple more Super Bowls as well. Probably the Steelers and the Packers in Cowboy Stadium. Probably one of the Well, I've been to 3 Super Bowls. I would say
me and Dan.
I would say that from a percentage of people in the crowd, that's the highest. I think the Saints. There were Saints fans everywhere. There was a lot of Colts fans too. And I think more and more over the last 10 years, there's less real fans in the crowd now. But there was a lot of real football fans.
Yeah. It's the same with every major sporting event. It's all corporate now, isn't it? Everything's corporate, and
you could see from the Super Bowl at SoFi, and people were literally saying, "Are there any fans in the stadium?" Because the amount of celebrities that were putting out pictures and content of them being in the stadium, there was a real question. We're saying, how many people are actually there that are following these teams?
You have that in every sport, though. We had that when England made the Euro final, and literally, obviously you're on Twitter and yet again, it's the world that we live in. You have all these influencers and people that you don't really know unless you're really into Instagram and you're 21. And these people are getting tickets for a game like that, and it's no different now at the Super Bowl. It's just it's a publicity race now. It's just let's get the people with the biggest amount of followers just to tweet something about our game. Which is sad, which really sad.
I got to tell you something about the Super Bowl though. Is they put the kind of the Saints fandom headquarters with South Beach, and the Colts kind of fandom headquarters, and I think the Colts stayed there, is at Fort Lauderdale. and it perfectly summed up the two sets of supporters.
Yeah.
Lauderdale, you go there and it's like
Yeah.
laid back. There's a lot of grey hair. Well, I can't complain. I can't brag, but a lot of grey hair and stuff like that. You went to South Beach. It was carnage.
It was a party.
It was proper. Well, the Saints are in town. And if you've never read Sean Payton's book that he wrote after the Super Bowl, read it, buy it, read it. It's a great read. But this is when, and it was Sean, not PR, they just took the town over. They took billboards out, turned the whole town into the Saints. Yeah. It was amazing. It was New Orleans, Southeast. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So a question I'd ask as well, that having been to a Super Bowl and seen the Saints win, would you, if they got there again, would you want to go to the Super Bowl again, or would you rather go to New Orleans and experience it?
Yeah, so one of the biggest sporting heartbreaks of not just my life, but all Saints fans, is that absolute disgrace Rams game where I was about to pull the trigger on 4 tickets at $4,200 each. But I wasn't paying for them all. My mates, Mike and his mate, Mike, were going to come as well, me and Lisa. So I was about to pull the trigger, go to Atlanta and party up in dirty.
I definitely want to do it in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And have them pay for it.
That's great. Hey, the cool thing, fans watching and they decide do they want to go to Atlanta, it is a good place to visit to go and watch the Saints. And there's a lot of ex-Louisianans working in the hospitality industry. And say you walk through a hotel, it's like, who that? Just turn around, there's the hotel concierge. Like that pisses Falcons fans.
Yeah,
that's great.
I think we've got a few guys in our Discord that we're in who are based in Atlanta who are Saints fans. I think we've got a decent population there.
Yeah, I think you've got, but you haven't you? Obviously, because of the tragedy that was Katrina. I think a lot of that southern sort of belt, it has got a lot of people from the city there, because obviously they were forced out and unfortunately had to sort of stay there regardless of whether they wanted to come back or not. So you've got that, but it's a wonder. That's a wonderful story. It really is. It's one of those things, not only your journey from sort of Australia to America and sort of the realization of the Saints, which is, at an away stadium. It's just that journey, and then the whole Super Bowl thing, and the fact that you've been to 2 more after that makes me want to kill you, Mark.
Yeah,
that's not fair.
Those other 2, I kind of got sucked in to go with friends and stuff like that. And they never they're expensive, right? But it never used to be like now. The prices are insane.
I'd probably pay the money you said around for if we'd beaten the Rams. I think I don't know if my wife would be comfortable, but I think opportunity to
without having that discussion with our wives, we'd consider paying it, but then
I'd probably pay it and then lie.
Well, at the time, Dan, it was like about £3,000. So I recall going $4,200, something like that. It was about £3,000. I thought, right, okay, it's insane, but we only live once.
Yeah, and these things only happen. Like this is,
if you can afford it.
Yeah.
Look, another story. So we're at a bar after a Saints game. The year LSU won the national championship a couple of years ago with my mate Mike. And Mike's a good, hard working class boy from Louisiana, now living in Mississippi, working for FedEx. So, he's not a rich guy or anything.
But sorry, Mark, very quickly, because that's the other thing. Is that the friends that you and Lisa have got over there, where you go, you travel with them and go?
Yeah, we travel with them. They come here. A good story about that. But just I'll come back to that actually. How we met.
Yeah.
Two family groups that were like best friends now is and this is the story of New Orleans, but. Yeah, and Mike was sitting there with his mates. We've had a few because we've been to the Dome, and he's thinking about, because he's a huge LSU fan, and I said, mate, just buy a freaking ticket, and he's going, oh, you know, I don't know, and it was about, they were going for about $1,000 at the time. I said, just buy it, just buy it. So he got on, you know, while we're drinking beer and that, and next thing you know, he's got 3 guys. He goes, right, we're going to go all in. I said, look, have you got the cash, money? He goes, yeah, I'll make it happen. I said, don't worry, I'll cover you. You can pay me back whenever, mate, because you have to go. So he bought it, and I could see when he was sweating. And I was like, $1,000, you know, a lot of money. And then guess what? Guess the first person he called after he went and they'd won was me, saying,
truly, yeah.
Thank you so much for convincing me. And his wife Jess, she was great as well.
Yeah.
He went, because he lives in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So they got there on, I think it was Monday night game, right? They got there on, they said, right, we spent all this money, we're going to make it pay. So they got there like Friday night and just partied all the way through New Orleans, right way through. So yeah, that was a great time. But just meeting folks. I got to tell one story. So
I think I know what this story is, and I love it. Go on.
Well, so this is the one. So me and Lise, we're all decked out in Saints gear because we're going to watch a local game in Bristol. Actually, I live in London, but a mate of ours was helping out Bristol, and said, "Oh, why don't you come and you can run the chains with me?" I went, "Oh yeah, that'd be cool. We'll have a day out, you know." So me, Lisa, and our mate Mark, we're driving along. We stop at a services on the way to Bristol, and Lisa's gone to the loo, and I'm just standing there. And this lady comes up. She goes, "Y'all from New Orleans?" I go, "Oh no, but we're huge British Saints fans." She's going, "Oh my God, that's awesome. Wait here." So she runs off, comes back, brings her husband and his son. They're huge Saints fans, living in the UK right now, or then. And he'd been seconded for his work. He's an engineer. So he's going, "Oh my God, we didn't know there's any Saints fans in the UK. He's going, that's crazy." I said, "Oh, dude, like, yeah, here's my card and that. Let's meet up for dinner." I said, and the NFL games in London were coming up soon. So I said, "Do you want to go to a game? Like, you know, I'll get you tickets and stuff like that." So we met up there, and that's it. We are firm friends now. And he's moved back to the US. He's actually moved to Houston.
Yeah.
His son Patrick goes to LSU, and all his family are in Portland, basically. So, yeah, we usually sit with him or with our other friends.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we are considered part of the family now. That's what.
Yeah. And that we've touched on that in a couple of in the pods before, where obviously, Mark, from your perspective, you're years ahead of us in your fandom, but your story is very reminiscent of what actually, to all intents and purposes, is sort of happening to me and Dan now, which is, you know, I think it, you know, we've documented. I've only went to my first game, same as Dan, a few years ago, but you know, I've been over to the city now, and I've been out for dinner with people who I didn't know sort of 2 years ago. I've been to games with people that I didn't know, you know, 4 years ago. Every single time I go out there, I get an invite from somebody different to do something else. Yeah. And that's the beauty of the city. It really is the beauty of the city.
We've got
people are genuine, and
yeah,
you know, we have good friends of mine. Their family lives in Kansas, and I don't want to pick on Kansas, but there are some areas, and it's usually, you know, your Californias and stuff. People will be saying things like, "Oh, you must come around one day," you know, but they don't mean it.
No,
but in the South, they mean it, right? Yeah. And there's also like places like Ohio and stuff like that. People are the same as well. I mean, that are just awesome. But you know, they mean it. Y'all got to come around for jambalaya one day. Yeah, mine's the best. Well, you know, gumbo, I got the best roux. Come around, and you get around there, and they won't let you go home. You know, you have to stay, and it's just
so we've experienced with our friend Josh who I met on Twitter, and we just started chatting. And then when me and Mike went for Mardi Gras, we went and spent a couple of days with him and his family, just chilling out, and inviting us. Went out on went and just had drinks on his cousin's boat and stuff like that. Just different. And then even like this week, guy we know, Luke, in the Discord, he's like saying to me, "You've got to come out to Lafayette and try Parish Brewery, and I'll take you on a tour and stuff." And they mean it. These people you meet mean it. They want you to come and do it.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, Mark.
We were there last year, right? So our friends Kevin and his wife, so they go like, Captain Mike, he's got a big old boat. Let's go out on the bayou. And it's like, okay. So we just like drive to their house, and then we jump in their car. They've packed like food. We're having a barbecue on this big old boat and just cruise around the bayou. Captain, he's awesome. He's going, hey, you just give me a call anytime you're in town. We'll go out fishing or whatever. It's like, oh man, people are so awesome.
Yeah, and it's the beauty of the whole area. And I think both you and Dan have summed it up. When people say something, they mean it.
Yeah.
And in the short time that I've been able to get over, to the city and the area quite a few times, that's true. That nobody has ever invited me or done something and disappointed me. They're there.
This is probably one of the things that frustrates me a little bit, because New Orleans as a reputation as a city from national news and national media. No one ever talks about how amazing the people are, how welcoming they are. They just focus on the bad things. And you can go to anywhere in London and find bad things. Yeah, it's just different in the United States because they have guns, but we have knives here.
But also,
all things being equal,
that's human nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's like, not in a hurry. My father-in-law always says that there should be a good news channel on the the television, because unfortunately, good news doesn't sell. It really doesn't.
No,
so you're right. Yeah.
I've got to stop following Sky News. It's depressing.
People have made me cry. It's like, so after we won the Super Bowl, I said to Lise, we're going to the first game, of course. I said, I got to pay something back to the city. So I volunteered for Habitat for Humanity. That's another story. That's the worst thing I ever did in my life.
Oh, you've told me about this. Sweating in Louisiana heat.
Was that something to do with the heat, Mark?
That was a warehouse, wasn't it? In the warehouse, you said there was no heat.
I worked in a warehouse, carrying timber around in what was literally over 50 degrees in that damn warehouse. It's I nearly killed myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the whole thing out, but I did it.
I did it. You for doing that. Good for you.
The intention was there, and yeah.
Oh no, I put some hard work in.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it for like 3 or 4 days. I couldn't. I couldn't. Because I think I started on the Tuesday, and I was supposed to. On the Monday, and I couldn't do it on the Wednesday. I did not have the energy. It was so humid and sucked it out of me.
Mark, can you
told them the night
just on that? Can you imagine you as a born and bred Aussie? Can you imagine me and Dan going over and try and do that? We would have lasted 28 minutes.
Yeah, but it was the humidity and no air conditioning in this big warehouse facility. And what people were doing is collecting stuff from the dumped up houses. They then bring the wood to Habitat for Humanity. Then we would basically sort it, and then we'd package it for sale.
Yeah.
Or we would prepare it for Habitat for Humanity to go and use to rebuild some of the houses. So, but the emotional thing for me was, people would go, oh yeah, because remember this, it's only kind of 3 years after Katrina. And they hadn't had any tourists really for a couple of years at least. So they're just starting to trickle back in, and people go, way here, I go see the Saints, go, oh my God. As soon as you say that, it's like,
yeah.
And we're sitting in a restaurant actually one night, and I think it was on the Wednesday night. The guy said, what have you been doing the last few days? I said, I've been volunteering for Habitat for Humanity. And like they went and called the manager over, and the manager shook my hand, and like everyone's crowding around going, oh, thank you so much. given to the city and like start to make me cry and that. And they took 20% off my bill, and it's just oh man, if you can't love a city like that, you can't love it. It's just insane.
Yeah,
it's funny. It's I know it's not the city, but we all went to see Hot 8 Brass Band a couple of weeks ago. The three of us, my wife and daughter came. We met a load of other Saints fans, and it's funny. Like we came out of there, and Nick sort of said to me, "I get it. Like it's not the city, but seeing the atmosphere and the vibrance." And she was like, "All right, I get it now. I understand. I haven't been, but I can feel it. It's palpable coming off those 9 musicians on stage or 8 musicians on stage." And that's when you get there, you feel it, and it's straight away. It's so palpable. It's in the air about the city.
Yeah. No, it was like going to that, and I know you were saying obviously, and it was wonderful because you had your wife there and your daughter, and that was fantastic for I think for everyone. But as we were saying, so many people came out and met up with us, and it felt like a party, but it felt like it felt like you were in the city because the way that we were behaving was this is just about pure enjoyment of music. And
so we had, I'd say the three of us were outside a bar, and we had a lady come up to us. She was a teacher from New Orleans who had relocated to London. She was excited to see us in our Saints gear. We had a load of people come up to us inside who were from the city, who was just saying, seeing us representing the Saints and stuff like that. Can I just give a shout out to our friend Mark? Not this Mark, Shell Toe Soul on Twitter. His wife had the most glamorous solid alligator necklace and matching charms on her boots. She looked absolutely fabulous. Really did. And so did Mark with his he had the Jazz jersey on, but the original New Orleans Jazz jersey, not the Utah. They both looked slick.
Yeah.
It did look good. I was gonna say you touched on the thing about not knowing other Saints
sorry, just a quick one on that one, Dan. I thought that was. I mean, I went the following week to see Hot 8 in Manchester with my 2 sons and their 2 girlfriends. That was absolutely wonderful. The only thing I would say about the Hot 8 gig in London was I didn't get to appreciate it fully, did I? Because I went home and lost my phone, and then a week later saw that it was in Algiers and Algeria.
Not Algiers Point.
No, Algiers.
Algeria.
It was in Algiers. I think there was something going on. But yeah, so it was like, it was such a wonderful night, but I just didn't, because of the aftermath, I didn't get to appreciate how wonderful it was. And it was a superb night. Absolutely.
Mark,
one of the best.
He took the photo at the end of all of us, however many of us there was, just outside. It's on his phone. It's lost forever. Some guy in Algeria is going,
sorry. Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, you touched on, you mentioned about not knowing Saints fans, or your friend saying they didn't think there was any Saints fans in England. I thought for a long time that I was naively and maybe somewhat arrogantly that I was the only Saints fan because I didn't know any, didn't have any on Twitter. Met a couple, Ashy and Card in Newport and a couple of those guys, but Mr. Daley is the first Saints fan I ever met in person in London, and we met it was 2000 and, hang on, where's my scarf? When did we play Dolphins? 2018? 2017?
Yeah. 17.
And NFL UK did an event in King's Cross, and they had players from all the teams that were coming over from London. So we were queuing up to get into this venue, and in front of me was this little guy, and he had a Bucks jacket on, covered in patches. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm stuck in front of this guy. And in front of him was Mark and Lisa. And that's when Mark first told me his Super Bowl story. So that was the first time I met Mark. And we saw Alex Jenkins, who was the international pathway player for the Saints. He was up on stage. But we got to see Honey Badger that night. He was there as a Cardinal. And Johnny Heck, who I hate for doing that fake punt
we don't need
in
to
the
go
NFC
into that,
Championship game.
I think we've been there before.
I almost wanted to say that Mark was almost like an anchor point for a lot of us, because
a beacon.
A lot of us knew Mark and we connected to each other through Mark.
It's funny. We've spoken about it, Dan, I think previously, but funnily enough, myself and Dan didn't know each other. we all went to that high heat brass band in Kentish Town, and it was myself, Dan, and Mark, and that was a fantastic night. That was a great night, and it was again, that was my first time meeting Mark, and it's remarkable how things move on, and yet again, the community of Saints fans in this country is remarkable because you attach to each other. And we touched on it earlier. It's not only that, but we've been to a game in New York together, and it's a wonderful experience. And then we meet at the London games, all that sort of great stuff. It's a wonderful. If you feel like you're part of the city that you support, because the community over here is exactly like the city, I think.
I'm just hoping that we get you guys over so you can go to my friend's tailgate one day, because I think you like the old tailgate there. You get a few of the super fans at that tailgate. The Fat City Drum Corps always comes in and plays, and basically they just have as much scotch and shit that you
can. I take it you're going over this year, Mark.
Yeah, we're doing the 3-game homestand early December. So
that's the ones we wanted. We wanted those games, didn't we? But it's just
I'm thinking, because I'm going over in early November for a meet up with Dan and stuff. But I am literally thinking, if I do a quick visit, then can I get away with at least those 2 of those games in December? And I'm really considering it. But that's all wife dependent, Mark and Dan.
So I tried convincing Nick to go to Tampa at Christmas. I said, "Oh, let's go get some summer sun." And she was like, "No, I want to go to New York." I was like, "I think Tampa would be nice." And she was like, "Are the Saints playing?" I went, "Yeah." And she's like, "No, I want to go to New York." So I was like, "Okay."
Sanibel Island. You can go stay on the island. It's like a holiday island. Short drive up the coast. Go to the game. Guys can be there, or they can go to Busch Gardens or something like that.
Dan, you need to get Mark on the phone.
Clearwater.
I think that's what you need to do, my friend.
Nick met Mark. She likes Mark. She's a very nice gentleman.
She's awesome. Yeah. You're a lucky man.
Thank you.
I think Dan, you've probably got your eye on the time. We're probably over the hour or just round about the hour.
See how we go. It's fine. We've got a little bit.
Time. So I was going to say, but do you want to have a dig into a couple of other questions? Maybe,
so one of the questions that I said to Mike, that I wanted to start asking people is: so you get to New Orleans, you dump your stuff off where you're staying, you go to a bar. What's the first drink you order? First beer, cocktail, Hurricane.
You're a Hurricane man.
Yeah, but I like margaritas and Hurricanes. Don't get me wrong. I've just been drinking beer solidly for 2.5 days. I do like, but yeah, I love Hurricanes. But folks, if you're watching, be careful. Hurricanes can cause problems, and I've caused problems to myself a number of times.
You need to expand on that. What problems are we talking about, my friend?
The problem is normally, let's take a Saints game, right? So my mates start tailgating from 8, and the game's at 12 normally.
Yeah.
So you're drinking from 8. You plan to have breakfast at the tailgate, but your breakfast is usually exactly what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And then you might have like maybe half a bowl of jambalaya or something just to put some lining. You get in the stadium, there's dudes walking, and this is the British thing that you just go, there's a dude walking past me selling beer. And you just can't help it. It's like, how good is this?
We did exactly the same. We're sitting in our seats. So it doesn't matter if it's more expensive. I haven't got to get up. Bring it over here.
Yeah. Exactly. And by this time, the concept, the value of money's gone out your brain anyway. It's like, just chucking the money.
$20? Who gives a shit?
Oh, here's 20 tip. You're doing God's work.
Yeah. And then normally the Saints win, so you got to go for a drink afterwards, right? So, and then what we used to do is we'd end up at Pat O'Brien, so famous place, Bourbon Street. And we go to other places as well, but my bad stories are there, and Lisa probably tell you even more. But
The ones that she remembers that you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't drink hurricanes after you've been drinking like 15 beers.
No.
It doesn't work very well. One is fine, but for me they're very Moorish, and because you start hanging out with dudes, you get handed over. So like we went with friends and we sat down, and then our friend was just sort of starting to leave just about, and then our friends introduced us to some other friends who sat down. Those friends left. We got the handover. I was like, oh yeah, better have another one, right? And like and then I thought, I really have to go home now. Lisa's going, you're wasted. So I remember, well, I don't remember actually, but apparently turned left and just fell ass over its head on the ground, right on a policeman's feet.
Oh dear.
And Lisa's going, he's from England. Don't.
and then you turn around and went, "You're all right, mate. How you doing?" And he was like, "You ain't from England." You fucking...
Exactly.
Yeah.
But look, I'm a Saints fan, right? And he just sees Saints and he goes, "I'll help you up, sir. Where you got to go?" Apparently, and Lisa goes, "Oh, we got the hotel just down the road." He goes, "Can you get him home?" She's going, "Oh, I don't know, but I'll try." And I got home.
Yeah.
That's the closest I've been to getting arrested, but
I think
that's happened about 3 times.
I think Pat
and what's worse, guys, if you go to a dive bar,
my favorite places on earth, Mark,
even insanely more. Like at least that happened to me again. I went in there and I only had 2, couldn't stand up, but it was like that big. And Lisa said basically the alcohol was up to 3/4, and then he put a dash of like pineapple in it or something to give it some fruit juice. And it was like,
we went. There was a dive bar around, when the first time I went. There was a dive bar at the back of my hotel called the Corporation Bar around the back of the Hilton Garden Inn, and it was an absolute shithole. Like, I went in there. I was like, I'm not drinking in here. I loved it. They did us a hurricane, and I've got a video. And maybe one day, me and Mike learn how to edit it. I'll insert it like here or something.
I've got that software now, Dan. I've got that software, mate. So send it over.
My mate Gaz, he gets his drink, and it's on our last day of this hurricane. And we go, right, let's have a toast to New Orleans. And he goes like that, and he just goes, oh, and he hasn't even sipped it. He's just like, I can't. It's so strong. But I was going to say, Pat O'Brien's, I think, is like a tipping point for people, because if you're on bourbon and you end up in there, and Mike knows this from when we went for Mardi Gras or Lundi Gras, we're just having a casual drink. We go to my favourite place, which is Jean Lafitte's for the Voodoo daiquiri. And we go, let's just nip in Pat O'Brien's for a drink. And that was my tipping point. And Mike's got a video of me just doing some crazy dance, and it was where we got we experienced the female version of what you got in your shoes, where the girl asked if we wanted to see her boobs, and I spun round. I was like, "What?" And Mike was like, he said, "No, but we're fine, thank you." Very like a British gent. No, thank you. We don't need to see your boobs.
My very English camp London accent.
Yeah.
No, we're okay, thank you. We don't need to see those boobies.
We're a couple of tits. We don't see any more. But he said it was apparently it's the female version of I better know what you got on your feet or something that they do to tourists. Some of the girls. But yeah, Pat O'Brien's is definitely a tipping point. If you end up there halfway through the day and you've been drinking and you hit a couple of hurricanes, you are finished for the rest of the day.
Also, and you're absolutely right. But it also, yet again, for anybody who may be watching this who's never been to the city, you have to go.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage.
Because it's for me, it's a wonderful thing. I've always been, obviously, I'm not a huge fan of the mass-produced hurricane that Pat O'Brien's do. I don't mind a proper hurricane.
Yeah.
But the one thing is, the first time I went into Pat O'Brien's, and I think it was on my second visit there, and we went in quite late at night, it's actually a beautiful setting.
It's a beautiful setting. Courtyard's really nice.
When the fountains lit up and all the light, it's actually it's a beautiful setting just to sit there and whatever drink you have, just drink it. It's a huge courtyard, and there's always vibrancy and life and everything
that's
going on there.
I
And
was going to say, that's what I like about Jean Lafitte's. It's a lovely setting to
Yeah.
sit in. It's right at the end.
Yeah.
And I did a thing recently where there's like, someone sent me a spreadsheet and it was like, work out where you should drink in New Orleans based on, you know, one of these yes, no, maybes things. And it basically said like, this is where bankers and people drink is Jean Lafitte's. But I really like it in there. It's there's no electricity, so they take the power from the building next door. It's all candlelight. There was a guy who was there last time, Mike, playing the piano in pitch black dark.
Yeah,
and we were just sitting outside drinking. It's a really nice vibe in there. It's on
You gotta
Bourbon,
go
but
there.
it's
You have to go
away from
there.
the carnage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much to do outside as well. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to get more sophisticated, you can go to like a Bacchanal wine place out in Faubourg Marinais.
Yeah.
Where basically it's a wine shop, but you go through around the back and it's a big old garden, you know, with the oaks and Spanish moss and some like blues or jazz band playing in the corner of somebody's big backyard. It just looks amazing. They got the colored lights. Oh,
similar to Bayou Beer Garden. You go into that and it just looks like an average pub. And then you go to the back and you've got this huge beer garden. It's really good vibe. And then you've got the Bayou Wine Garden as well.
Back at Tremay, right?
Yeah, which
back at Tremay of Mid City. Yeah, it's really nice in there. Really like it.
Mark, if you're and Lisa are staying sort of in the city, where do you tend to stay? What hotel?
So like, because I travel a bit, I get points like for Hilton. So but we prefer. We try and prefer to stay more older or historic places.
Yeah.
Well, I've already booked. I'm staying in the Club Wyndham, La Belle Maison.
Oh yeah.
Which is a newer place.
Yes.
But all I can say is at some point, if you can afford it, have a look in the quarter and have a look at some of the old hotels / B&Bs. There are ones that are like shotgun hotels, are the ones that you just like, there's just a door and windows and stuff, and then you go through the main door and you're out in the courtyard, and just do that once. But I mean, we don't tend to. I mean, we've stayed in the Garden District, and that's lovely. I mean, I love that just for the change, because I get up in the morning, just walk around.
Change pace, isn't it? Have a walk, beautiful area, have a coffee somewhere, and they're a great
Magazine Street, have a lovely outdoor sit-down breakfast. And that magazine, Garden District area is basically like being on a film set for Gone with the Wind, right? It's just house after house after house. The wind places.
You need to sort their sidewalks out. They're all over the place around there, aren't they? They're just crazy. Those big trees are just fucking up the sidewalk.
Yeah. But so we tend always to stay near the quarter, or if not in it. We've stayed mostly. I would say probably sometimes on Poydras if we're just going for games. We've stayed at the Hyatt, which is next to the Dome, and that's cool because it's like a party hotel for Saints. But we tend to chop and change it around a little bit.
So you choose a hotel based on what your visit's for, really. If you're there for an extended amount of time, maybe do something else. If you're there for a game, just be something that's practical for the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. Look, I would say, right, because I think actually at some point we're going to have to think about signing off. Do you not think, Dan?
Well, I could always come back another time if you.
I think you've got Mark. You are definitely coming on again without a shadow of doubt.
I think it would be remiss of us not to ask Mark who his favourite Saints player ever is and who his current favourite Saints player is.
Yeah.
So it's easy because it's definitely Drew Brees. I mean,
All right. So we're going to make a caveat in that.
All right, except
because I think anybody who's got a history of the Saints, quite rightly, would say Drew.
I did a
if
thing
you're not
for
thinking Drew, who's it going to be?
See, I'm kind of a bit weird as well. Like my favorite players tend to be those guys who contribute but don't get recognized, but just do good things. One of my all-time favorites is Robert Meacham, believe it or not, because he just did crazy things and like no one ever was thought he would ever be any good. and he worked hard, played within a good system, mind you.
Yeah.
And he did go off to San Diego for a while and didn't go so well. But I just love.
Isn't that that's a common theme?
Yeah,
isn't it? That people who do well in the system that we used to deploy tend to go off and not do particularly well.
I was listening to 20. I think you know you're talking to 28 to 3 podcast, which is Darth Saint, Max, Corey, and those guys, and they was talking about they put together their best ever Saints team to win a Super Bowl, and they was talking about wide receivers, and they was basically saying wide receivers do well here, and then they go off and they don't do well anywhere else. Like they're talking about Willie Snead and people like that. Put up good, reasonable numbers considering they weren't wide receiver one. Move away from Drew Brees, and the numbers.
And yet again, we talk about the organisation, but actually we're talking about which is probably going to be. And I think it has become a bit in vogue, isn't it? I threw it on you, Mark, where I was saying you can't choose Drew, but let's be honest. Anybody who's thinking about their favourite Saints player, 80% of people are going to choose Drew anyway, because why wouldn't you?
I always caveat
that Dan's just given. But and so that's part of the reason why we're saying apart from
my first ever favourite player was Bobby Hebert. He's the one that I remember like being my, and I'm very lucky. We went. Bobby Hebert has a restaurant out in Metairie, near the Lakeside Mall and near the black and gold store. You got to go to black and gold.
We still have every single person that I've spoken to in the city where I say, where shall I go and get my Saints gear? They tell me about the black and gold, and I've still
get a cab.
Yeah.
Get a cab. Do it around lunchtime. You can go to the store, then nick over to Bobby Hebert's. It's just it's almost like a chain kind of restaurant, but it's fine.
Yeah.
We went to Bobby Hebert's and Bobby was there. And what was even weirder was he had 2 Aussie Saints fans with him. There's a infamous guy called Tony from Melbourne who always, I don't know if he still does, or used to dial into WWL. And so
I remember him. Yeah.
He's a bit of a nutcase, but Bobby had him for lunch. So we said g'day, and that was it. Bobby, come on over here, getting photos, and met Tony in that as well. Yeah, brilliant.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, you should go there, definitely.
Yeah, no, without doubt. And literally, it's every time I speak about getting stuff for the Saints, every single person tells me to go there.
We're probably buying stuff from overpriced places in the French Quarter.
Yeah, Dan, we'll have to do that next time we're over in November. Let's hit it.
Yep. I would say I do like Bobby Hebert's son. He does media stuff, and I think some of his stuff's pretty good that he does. I like his style when he's T-Bob. Yeah, I like T-Bob's stuff.
Yeah.
Seems to be a good guy.
Yeah.
Right. I think possibly maybe a question to end it on, which would be probably apart from the Falcons, Mark, which other team do you hate in the NFL?
49ers.
Yeah.
but also there is no love from me to the Buccaneers at all.
Yeah. Is that a recent thing, or is that something that you've always sort of held on to?
I think that one's been more modern. Like the 49ers goes back to the old days when we were in the West, right? And
no, I was talking obviously the 49ers, I understand. I'm talking about the Bucks. Was that really a modern sort of hatred?
I think it's
been there.
I don't know. So I've been lucky. I've been to see the Saints play at the Bucks probably 5 out of the last 8 times, maybe more.
Oh, wow.
And
can I come and live with you and Lisa?
Before Tom Brady could go there, tickets were cheap as chips, and the ground would be half full, and half of that would be Saints fans. Tom Brady comes, the joint's packed, and they're all carrying on as if they've been going for the last 50 years.
Chelsea fans.
And they were I got photos of people wearing half and half.
Don't half and half me. Don't half and half me.
Can't.
Of Brady with a Patriots and a Bucks. What the hell?
Yeah, but Mark, we had that. Like, it's funny. Both my boys are not into American football, but actually, my youngest son three of his best mates are really into American football. And one of them, Satch, he was a huge Patriots fan. But then we had the whole Tom Brady fiasco. And so I used to talk to Satch quite a lot about American football because none of it, I didn't really have a lot of people around me until I met the people that I've met. So I used to talk to quite an ear Patriots and then he went to the Bucks, Brady, and literally he turned up my house probably about 2.5 weeks after Brady went to the Bucks, and he had a Bucks cap. And when you're just like, that's just disgusting. And literally, I just hammered him and told him, literally, jokingly, because he was my son's friend, but just told him to get out of my fucking house.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? But yeah, and I think in the, I know neither of you are sort of probably, well, I know Dan's not in it. I know you probably don't view it that much, but I remember putting a picture up in the Saints WhatsApp group of this guy's Bucks cap on my bloody kitchen table. And it was like, oh, anyway. Anyway, I've calmed down now.
I was going to say, it reminds me of, we went to see the Super Bowl this year. We went to Box Park at Wembley, and there was a guy sitting in a Taysom Hill jersey. Like that, we was on the balcony, and he was sitting. He'd paid for a table, and I'm sitting there. I've looked down, and I've gone. That guy's gone and got changed into a Green Bay Packers jersey, and it really agitated me. So I started throwing chips at him, and I kept throwing. And he was looking around like, "What's going on?" And then the guy in the Taysom Hill jersey comes back, and it was a different bloke.
Dan was just violently throwing chips at a stranger. That's Dan. All right, Mark. One of the last things that I've got to ask you is, right, I need your season projection. So I'm going to go through the games, and you're going to tell me what you think. Yeah, are you all right with that?
Yep.
Right. So Titans at home is a what?
A win.
A win. Panthers away
is a win.
Yeah. Packers away
is a loss. Even though I have no idea how good.
I'm not sure about that. Bucks at home. They're going to be awful.
Yeah,
God,
we're going to win that. Yeah.
Yeah. Patriots.
We're usually really good against them, so I'm going to say, yeah. Well, that was with Sean. I'm going to say loss.
All right, cool. Texans away.
Win. There'll be more Saints fans than Texans there.
Yeah. Jags at home.
Win. They're really good.
Ooh. I think most people say that's going to be a loss, but Colts away.
Win.
It's looking good at the moment. Bears at home. The game that me and Dan are going to be at.
We're going to win that. I'm going.
I'm going to say this to make it good luck for you. I think we'll lose.
All right, cheers, mate. Vikings away.
And then we'll win.
Yeah. See, this is
reverse psychology.
Like for me, like the Colts, like I'm going over for the Bears, and I was saying to you, I always like a little bit like you and Lisa. I like to try and maybe get to more than one game when I go over.
Yeah.
But the Colts and the Vikings after the Bear games just don't appeal to me, which is why I'm thinking of doing that short Bears visit and then that Lions, Panthers, Giants thing. Maybe hitting two of those. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. Anyway. Lions game.
Vikings away.
Loss.
We've got a bye week, and then it's Falcons away.
Win.
Yeah, baby.
Lions at home.
Loss.
Yeah. Panthers at home.
Win.
Giants at home.
Win.
The Rams away. They're going to be trash.
They're going to be tanking for Caleb by then.
Yeah. Let's say win.
The Bucks away.
Yeah. Win. Actually, we're going to the playoffs.
And then the Falcons at home.
Win.
Do you know what? The only other person that we've done this with was Di, and he went 11-6. You've gone 12-5, Mark. Which I can feel it. I can feel that.
I'm feeling it.
It all depends on the new Messiah, Derek Carr.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The one thing I would say about him is obviously I think like if you listen to the national media in the States, nobody is talking about us, and that's fair enough.
I quite
like that. But the one thing that Dan was sort of brought up the subject of OTAs earlier, and the one thing that beyond who's been impressing, whether it's Olave or whoever, the one person who's been impressing is Carr. He's intelligent, methodical, compassionate, understanding, and actually he's got that ability to draw players into him. I remember, I don't know if you saw it, the interview with McCoy, where he was saying about, what do you think about Derek Carr? And he was like saying, geez, the man was looking at my 2020 tape literally an hour after we signed him. Because he messaged McCoy and saying, oh, I like this player. And he was like, Jesus Christ, that's what we've got in the building.
I mean, he's a preacher in some respects. He's a very religious individual. You see him speaking on events. And I think that comes through that. Although I'm not a religious person, that kind of approach that preachers have, it pulls people in. And if your quarterback's doing that,
we're not religious people. And Dan, sorry to interrupt. We're not religious people until we went to Jazz Fest and we were in that gospel tent, my friend.
Oh, that gospel tent! It saved me from torrential rain.
Time.
Do you know? I laugh about this, Mark. This gospel tent, it starts to chuck it down, and we all pile in and grab seats, and you look around. It's a gospel tent. You got these guys on stage who are preaching and talking about.
Wait. Sorry, Dan. Can I interject? And Mark, I'm gonna give it some context here. It didn't start chucking it down, and we went into the gospel tent. We went into the gospel tent, and it started chucking it down. That's when me and Dan were really like thinking,
"Thank God."
There's got to be something to this.
Yeah.
But do you know what, Mark? Everyone in there had a big old glass of booze in their hand. I was like, we're sitting in a pseudo house of God, and everyone is getting tanked up.
Yeah.
But it was good.
And we were enjoying it, though.
We
were there. We were blessed. We felt blessed. It was
front
a
row seats.
Wonderful time.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good. If you haven't done, well, I don't think you've done Jazz Fest. I strongly recommend if you at least can go over for it. It's a good day, good couple of days.
Brilliant event to get over for. Absolutely wonderful. Brilliant. Because also, obviously, it's not just the main music acts. You've got so much variety around you. You can dip in, whether it be jazz, blues, gospel, whatever. And every time you go into something, and also, let's not forget the food's absolutely brilliant there.
Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah. I think on that note, Dan, I think we might have to sign off, my friend.
Yeah, we'll have to wrap that up. But Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. He was always someone
mate.
When we talked about doing this, we said we got to get Mark on early doors. He's got so
Mark was the number one to get on. Absolutely. Yeah. And we will get you back on as well, my friend.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, look, you take care, and you and Lisa take care of yourselves. Dan, you take care of yourself, mate, and we'll see you next week on the Saints. You and me.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.